This is Top with you, and these are 100 discoveries that made scientists believe in aliens. Stoneberries in the desert in the southwest of the USA. Strange round stones were found, as if they were stoneberries scattered on the sand. And at first they were thought to be weathered rock fragments, until it turned out that similar structures appear in the legends of the Hopi people about heavenly seeds. And the same formations exist on Mars. The shape is perfectly spherical or slightly elongated, and the surface is smooth, as if polished. Geologists call them concretions, but usually such stones form in layers, pressed by rocks. Here, however, they were lying freely, as if someone had poured them out of a bag. The strangest thing is the chemical composition. Inside, there are iron-rich layers that are very similar to the Martian blueberries, spheres found in exactly the same groups on Mars. The set of elements found by the Opportunity rover is almost identical. The Hopi call these berries the traces of teachers who came from the red star. The scientific explanations are simpler: a rare form of mineralization and long-term wind erosion. But then it's unclear why the structures in different countries are the same, and why some of the berries seem to be scorched by high temperatures that have never occurred in these places. For archaeologists, it's a puzzle, an artifact, a mineral, or a trace of events that we can't describe yet. But the fact remains that such shapes are repeated both on Earth and on Mars, and sometimes nature repeats itself a little too precisely. Where it would seem there are no conditions for this, no land, only space. If there's any place on Earth where you can feel the breath of another planet, it's Atacama. A strip of land squeezed between the Andes and the coastal Cordillera hasn't seen rain for 400 years. The air here is so dry that metal rusts more slowly than a person ages. But it is this absolute lifelessness that has made the desert the main laboratory for space. In San Pedro de Atacama, the air smells of sulfur salt. During the day, the heat heats the sand up to 40 degrees, and at night, the temperature drops below zero. Silence in which even footsteps sound like gunshots. Everything here is made for looking up at an altitude of over 4,000 meters, where the thin air rings like glass. Lined up in a row are the giant Atacama Large Millimeter Submillimeter Array antennas, the Megalon Very Large Telescope. They capture light that has traveled to us for billions of years and break it down into the finest bands, like a researcher who pieces together the past of the universe bit by bit. When you look at these giant antennas, you feel that they are not like machines, but like living beings listening to the universe. Their aluminum ears catch the breath of stars, the cold noise, intergalactic dust, and echoes of distant bursts. In Atacama, a person is literally between two worlds, stone and space. Sometimes at night, local guides turn off the headlights, and the sky turns into a black dome, pierced with millions of needles of light. People stand in silence and watch as the Milky Veil rises over the mountains. At this moment, it becomes clear that if there is a place on Earth where you can hear the universe, it is here, in a place where only space breathes. Shiva Lingam in the city of Sirsi, in India, is a unique pilgrimage site called Sahasralinga. Here, among the natural beauty, are stone images of Shiva Lingam, which amaze with their appearance, especially during the Mahashivaratri festival. At this time, the water level in the river drops, making the sculptures visible, and attracts thousands of pilgrims and tourists who wish to see and worship the sacred lingams. Shiva Lingam is a symbol of Shiva, one of the main deities in Hinduism, representing the source of creation and destruction. Interestingly, there are not only religious but also scientific debates surrounding the Shiva Lingam. Some proponents of the ancient astronaut theory claim that the Shiva Lingam could represent a powerful technological device, similar in function to a modern nuclear reactor. Based on the shape and properties of the lingam, they suggest that ancient people might have used advanced technologies. On the other hand, modern scientists may interpret the Shiva Lingam as a symbol of atomic energy, which also has the potential for both great benefit and destruction. This analogy highlights the dual nature of Shiva, who in Hindu tradition is both a creator and a destroyer of UFOs. In Roswell, the beginning of the government conspiracy was on June 24, 1947. The pilot, flying over the Cascade Mountains in Washington state, was searching for a crashed military plane. At one point, he noticed 9 crescent-shaped objects flying in formation at an altitude of over 3 kilometers, at a speed of 1,900 kilometers per hour. At that time, it seemed unreal. Arnold Kenneth was the first to describe unidentified flying objects as saucers. The mass media found out about this and came up with the phrase flying saucer, which later became an integral part of humanity's greatest modern mystery. 2 weeks later, on July 7, 1947, a ranch owner in Roswell contacted the sheriff to report strange debris. He had heard the story about flying saucers and assumed that one of them might have crashed during the recent storm. After receiving the debris, the sheriff handed it over to the Army Air Base, and soon the military arrived at the ranch, which started a series of astonishing events. Within a day, the authorities completely changed their stance on the discovery, stating that the journalists had made a mistake and that the incident had nothing to do with UFOs. In 1978, the topic of the unidentified flying object crash in Roswell became popular again. A former military man admitted that the logical explanations were just a cover-up and the photos were staged. He claimed that the real wreckage was replaced to hide the existence of aliens. Search participants were certain it was an extraterrestrial spacecraft, but couldn't reveal this to the public. Curious scientists found several more retired military men, and all of them confirmed the fact of the unidentified flying object crash. Skeptics believe that they lied for a fee, but no one has yet been able to either disprove or confirm that the United States government hid the crashed alien spacecraft. Whether to believe in UFOs or not is up to each person. Some facts about extraterrestrial civilization still remain unquestionable, forcing us to accept a new reality. At the same time, an unidentified flying object hunter from the Pentagon and former head of the Office for Investigating Anomalous Phenomena gave an interview that cannot be ignored. Sean Kirk. Patrick admitted that his office did not find any real evidence regarding extraterrestrial origin. In addition, he denies government conspiracies aimed at hiding evidence of the existence of extraterrestrials. At the same time, United States Air Force veteran David Grush gave a sensational interview, confirming that he participated in the concealment of alien bodies and extraterrestrial flying vehicles, alien artifacts on Earth. History holds discoveries that do not fit into any chronology. In Turkey, at the temple complex of Göbekli Tepe, there are columns with carvings of animals and abstract symbols. They are about 12,000 years old. Officially, at that time, people did not yet know agriculture or architecture, but here we see engineering design in a symbol that has not yet been fully deciphered. Who built this complex, and why was it later buried, as if someone was trying to hide it? In South America, in Sacsayhuaman, giant stone blocks are fitted together so tightly that you can't even fit a blade between them. Stones, weighing hundreds of tons, are laid with perfect precision, with polygonal faces. Modern technology can barely replicate such joints. So, 500 years ago, the Incas had something they themselves called the technology of the gods. On the other side of the world, in Baalbek, Lebanon, there is a stone known as the Southern Megalith, which weighs over 1,000 tons. No one has yet explained how ancient builders could have moved it, but the fact remains that this block was worked on, and it was clearly intended to be used in construction. The only question is, by whose hands? Similar discoveries include the Ural metal spirals, the megalithic platforms of Tiwanaku, and the perfectly drilled holes in the stones of Egypt, which give the impression of being made by high-precision machinery. Every culture has artifacts that seem to have come from a different time. Scientists explain this with primitive technologies, coincidence, and the play of nature. But then why do such coincidences repeat all over the planet, in different eras and among different peoples? The theory that these are traces of aliens is convenient not because it's sensational, but because too many things start to fit together into one picture. And if these really are artifacts left by someone else, then their purpose could have been simple: to show that we are not the first and that everything we build today is just a faint echo of what was already here thousands of years ago. The mysterious floating island, the floating island El Ojo in Argentina, sparks many guesses and theories, from a haven for UFOs to a dwelling place for ancient spirits. However, scientists offer a more rational explanation for its existence, considering it to be the result of natural processes of erosion and the movement of water masses. This mysterious round island is located in the swampy delta of the Paraná River. Its name translates as eye, due to its striking resemblance to a perfectly round eye when viewed from above. The island attracted attention in 2016 when Argentine director Sergio Neuspiller explored the area for the documentary film From a Bird's Eye View. El Ojo impresses with its shape, and the water around it, despite appearing black, is crystal clear, which is unusual for the murky waters of the delta. The island has a diameter of 118 meters, and its rotation around its axis is a result of the currents, which also polish the lake's shore, forming its perfect features. This process continues, and scientists believe that it explains the round appearance of the island and the lake. El Ojo first appeared in satellite images about 20 years ago, and its origin is still shrouded in mystery. How and when it separated from the mainland is still unknown. The local residents, although they knew about its existence, preferred to avoid this place, believing that an ancient deity lived there. Some suggest UFOs are attracted to the area or claim it's a Nazi base, but there's no evidence for these theories. Artifacts of Hongshan. The Hongshan civilization is one of the most mysterious cultures of ancient Egypt, which existed about 6,000 to 7,000 years ago. It left behind unusual jade artifacts that depict humanoids with teardrop-shaped heads and huge eyes. Some of the figurines resemble creatures riding water scooters or even flying machines. These images do not fit into the usual idea of ancient cultures and make you wonder who or what they were trying to depict. The craftsmen of Hongshan are also associated with the unique caves of Huangshan, which were discovered in 1999. These man-made caves are striking in their size and complexity. Inside you can see pools, bridges over rivers, stairs, and passages. The area of the largest cave is 12,600 square meters, but the real mystery lies in the marks left on the walls. They resemble modern tunnel-boring machines, although technology of that level is believed not to have existed thousands of years ago. In addition, it remains unclear where the enormous volumes of excavated rock disappeared to. Scientists still have not found any traces of its use. Some researchers suggest that the caves and jade artifacts are evidence of contact with a more advanced civilization, possibly of extraterrestrial origin, UFOs in 1665. In April 1665, 6 fishermen witnessed a mysterious celestial event, a dogfight in the sky over the Baltic Sea near Stralsund. As evening fell, a dark gray disk appeared in the sky. The 1665 Unidentified Flying Object exhibition reconstructs how this event was presented in the media of that time and shows that many of the communication strategies used to cover unexplained celestial phenomena are still relevant today. The central event of this exhibition was the aerial battle of April 8, 1665. Fishermen saw flocks of birds turn into ships that fought in the sky, with ghostly figures bustling about on the decks. Soon, a flat disk appeared over St. Nicholas Church, and the fishermen fled in fear. The next day, they complained of shivering and body aches. The media of that time spread the news instantly, suggesting various theories about its origin. In an era when religion played a huge role, people believed that the phenomenon was a sign sent by God. At that time, no one knew that the fishermen had witnessed an atmospheric reflection, a naval battle beyond the horizon. The impact of the asteroid in contact with the gods, the asteroid that is believed to have wiped out the dinosaurs about 66 million years ago, left a significant mark on the Yucatan Peninsula. This impact created the Chicxulub crater, which is still an important geological site. Although this cataclysm occurred long before the rise of the Maya civilization, its long-term geological and ecological consequences may have influenced the formation of the region where this culture later developed. Archaeological findings, such as ruined cities and structures buried under layers of sediment, may indirectly support the theory of cataclysms that occurred in Yucatan. Nevertheless, there is no direct evidence that the Maya knew about the asteroid that destroyed the dinosaurs or had any information about them. The idea that the Maya could have had contact with dinosaurs is not scientifically supported. Dinosaurs became extinct long before the appearance of the first humans, let alone the Maya civilization. However, in their mythology and art, you can find depictions of creatures that can be interpreted as legendary or mythical animals. But this is not evidence of their actual contact with dinosaurs. Researchers sometimes find dinosaur fossils in Mesoamerica, But these discoveries date back to times that predate human history. Such findings may be of interest to geologists or paleontologists, but they do not support the theory of contact between the Maya and dinosaurs. Knowledge of ancient cataclysms may have been integrated into their mythology and beliefs related to natural phenomena and the actions of the gods. Maya, they believed in the cyclical nature of time and recurring catastrophes, which could have reflected their understanding of the past and their anticipation of future events. The mystery of the flying stones India is always shrouded in secrets and mysteries. In any of its corners, you can encounter something amazing and incredible. Many people come here for new experiences, to discover unknown spiritual possibilities within themselves. Once you visited this amazing country, it's impossible to forget it. One of India's mysteries is the levitating stones. In the small village of Shivapur, which is located 200 kilometers from Bombay, there are several boulders near the local temple, each weighing over 50 kilograms. According to the locals, these stones can rise into the air. To lift the first heavier stone, 11 men are needed. They must stand around it and say certain words. After that, the stone begins to levitate, and it can be supported with just one finger. The smaller boulder requires 9 men to lift it. There is also a third stone weighing more than 60 kilograms, which can only be lifted by the monks of the temple. The origin of these stones is mysterious. Some believe that they were sent by the gods, while others think that they broke off from a nearby cliff. A local resident who takes care of the temple claims that the stones occasionally split, and he replaces them with new ones by breaking them off from the cliff. But even the new stones retain their flying properties. Some scientists suggest that ancient people were able to move objects with the power of their minds, like during the construction of the Egyptian pyramids. Perhaps the knowledge of levitation was lost, but sometimes it resurfaces in places like Shivapur. Interestingly, in the last century, Edward Litzkalnin, an immigrant from Latvia, used similar methods to build his coral castle in Florida, which only confirms the existence of such knowledge. These unexplained phenomena support the hypothesis of extraterrestrial influence on ancient civilizations, suggesting that some technologies or methods may have been passed on to humanity by representatives of other worlds. The clearest photograph of an unidentified flying object was taken on September 4, 1971, in the northern highlands of Costa Rica. Photographer Sergio Loaiza was conducting aerial photography of Lake Cote for the National Geographic Institute, using a special mapping camera that took a photograph every 13 seconds. He was doing his job, unaware that one of the shots would become unique. Upon returning to the laboratory, Sergio checked the photos and noticed a mysterious round metallic object in the right part of one of the pictures. It is noteworthy that the object, resembling a flying saucer, was not found in either the previous or the subsequent shots. For some time, the National Geographic Institute tried to keep it secret by forbidding Sergio and his colleagues from talking about the incident. The metallic flying object, more than 18 meters in diameter, was kept strictly secret. But in 1979, the photograph appeared in an Argentine newspaper and was analyzed by experts. Soon, Costa Rica declared the photograph as official confirmation of the existence of UFOs. Despite years of study and debates among researchers in this field, no one has been able to say what this object is. Skeptics suggested that the object on the right side of the photograph is some kind of debris or a spot that got onto the film during the photo processing. In 2021, a family friend was able to obtain the original photograph in order to scan it using modern technology. This made it possible to digitize the photo, making it clearer and more detailed. Thanks to this, skeptics saw the saucer-shaped object in higher resolution. The updated photo made it possible to dismiss a number of mundane assumptions and theories, since it was not a smudge or a chip on the camera lens. So, what was it? Share your thoughts in the comments. A blazing, unidentified flying object over Canada. 2018, Quebec. While out for a walk and enjoying their time, the family noticed a strange object in the sky and decided to record it on video. The object, of an unexplainable shape, was slowly rotating, glowing with green and bright red lights. Random bystanders were amazed, realizing that they had witnessed something truly strange and unusual. At first glance, it might have seemed like a spaceship burning fuel as it gained altitude. Canada is one of the few countries that officially records data on UFOs. By collecting data, they publish amazing findings and footage, making skeptics question whether humanity is the only advanced race in the universe. The object captured on video has no visible means of propulsion and displays anti-gravity properties, hovering in the air for some time. The absence of wings and exhaust proves that it is not an aircraft. Some skeptics tried to explain this phenomenon as a natural optical illusion, but the weather was perfect that day, and it is clearly visible that this object is three-dimensional. A theory close to the truth suggests that the object was a balloon with a mirrored surface. But is that really the case? Maybe we're just denying the obvious, afraid to admit that aliens exist and they're already among us. Unknown material of the moon. When China brought back the first samples, scientists expected to see ordinary regolith fused by meteorite impacts from the far side of the moon. But among 5,000 fragments, they found 7 samples that completely changed the scientists' usual understanding. They contained too much olivine, a mineral typical for meteorites but not for lunar rock. Chemical analysis showed that these fragments do not match any known type of lunar minerals at all. Comparison of the isotopes of iron, manganese, nickel, and silicon gave an unexpected result. The substance is identical to carbonaceous ivuna-type chondrite, the most water-rich and rarest meteorite in the solar system. On Earth, these meteorites rarely survive. They're porous, fragile, and can't withstand atmospheric entry. But on the moon, it's different. Without air and without deceleration, they fly at full speed, melt, and instantly solidify, preserving their structure. These 7 fragments are the first confirmed carbonaceous ivuna-type chondrites found on the moon in their original form, and notably, there were more than expected. Estimates suggest up to 1/3 of all meteorites have ever fallen on Earth. Belonging to this type is not just rare, it's a trace of a massive bombardment that happened when the Earth and the moon were just forming. But the most interesting thing is something else. Carbonaceous ivuna-type chondrites are the main candidates for being the carriers of water and organics in the early solar system. And if there are so many of them on the moon, it means that part of this history is recorded right there. Not on Earth, where tectonics and the atmosphere erase everything, but on the satellite's far side, which has acted as an archive for billions of years. The irony is that while we argue about whether the moon is artificial or not, it was the moon that first provided material that doesn't fit the usual models of the origin of water and possibly even life itself. A medieval helmet on Mars. On August 5, the Perseverance rover photographed a strange rock that looked like an old helmet, half buried in the sand. The top is pointed, the sides smoothly converge, and the surface is covered with many small spheres. Scientists named the find Honflaya and immediately noted that they had never seen such a texture on Mars before. These tiny spheres are spherules, mineral formations that appear during weathering, deposition, or under the influence of water. But on Honflaya there are so many of them that the entire surface looks as if it is covered with pearls. This cannot be explained by ordinary erosion. It is possible that for millions of years, groundwater saturated with mineral layers passed through the rocks, and each drop left a trace. Or on the contrary, a stream of hot gases etched the surface, leaving behind scorched bubbles. The rover's instruments have already detected similar structures, but never in such quantity on Earth. Such formations are typical for areas with active hydrothermal activity, places where underground water meets heat. If this analogy is correct, it means that there was not just moisture in the Jezero crater, but a circulation similar to the one that supports life near underwater volcanoes. Perseverance is now on the crater's northern edge, climbing sedimentary layers like an archaeologist in an ancient city. With each meter, things become increasingly clear. This dome is not a random shape, but another reminder that the planet was not always a dead desert. The moon and its mysteries. We are used to thinking of the moon as something simple, a nighttime satellite, a beautiful disk in the sky, but the more we study it, the stronger the feeling that something is not right here. To begin with, the moon is too large for a satellite. Its diameter is almost a quarter of Earth's. Neither Jupiter nor Saturn nor Neptune has anything like this. it's an anomaly. Moreover, the moon's orbit is almost perfectly circular. Natural bodies don't behave like that. They move in ellipses. But here, it's as if someone adjusted its trajectory. Moving on. The craters, the impact basins on the moon, are huge, but none of them are deeper than 4 kilometers. Even the most colossal collisions didn't break through the crust. Why does it seem like there's an invisible armor beneath the surface? In the 70s, Soviet engineers openly said the moon behaves as if it's hollow, and confirmation came in a National Aeronautics and Space Administration experiment, when they deliberately crashed a module onto the moon, and the satellite began to vibrate. For 2 hours, not just minutes, the moon hummed like a bell, as reports stated. Rocks don't do that. Only hollow structures behave that way. The oddities don't end there. We only ever see one side of the moon. Scientists call this tidal locking. But why did this happen only here? Why is it that our satellite is forever turned to us with only one side? And why is the dark side so different? Scarred, devastated, as if it went through some ancient catastrophe. For decades, bright lights have been observed on its surface, sometimes shining for a whole minute. National Aeronautics and Space Administration keeps a catalog, but there's no answer, whether it's gas, volcanism, or some kind of machinery at work. In 2019, a new discovery was announced. Under the moon's South Pole crater, they found something massive, an object causing gravitational distortions. Scientists cautiously suggested that it might be an asteroid stuck in the core, but it's strange that the moon withstood it without being destroyed. And all of this brings back the hypothesis. What if the moon is artificial? According to their theory, it's not a satellite, but an ancient mechanism with a metallic shell, cavities inside, and possibly equipment. It's science fiction, yes, but the facts stubbornly refuse to fit into a natural picture. They were part of the story about the crucifixion in an ancient Georgian painting depicting the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Attention was drawn to a mysterious object that resembles a UFO. Behind the cross in the background, there's an object that looks like a giant button with a stem. One of the characters in the painting is even pointing at it with his hand, which seems to be a deliberate emphasis by the artist. The origin of the painting and the name of its author remain unknown, although it is believed that the image was created about 1,000 years ago in the 11th century. The church where this painting is located dates back to an even earlier period, the 5th century, although the current building was constructed between 1010 and 1029. Some believe that this object could have represented guardian angels, although this contradicts the traditional depictions of angels from that era, who were usually shown with wings. Others suggest that the artist may have intentionally depicted something resembling flying saucers as part of a broader symbolism. It could be an allegory or an element of a religious myth that has not survived in modern interpretations. The painting continues to spark interest and debate, offering a unique perspective on the combination of religious art and unexplained symbols that still remain a mystery. The Sabu disc, which is one of the most mysterious artifacts of ancient Egypt, was found in the tomb of Sabu, a descendant of Pharaoh Agib. It is at least 5,000 years old, but its true purpose remains a mystery. At first glance, it is a stone disc with 3 curved petals, but the details make you wonder. The thickness in some places is only 1.5 millimeter, which indicates incredible precision in its manufacture. Considering the level of technology at that time, many people wonder how this was possible. Scientists hypothesize that the disc could have been part of a ritual or a decorative element, but there are other theories that go beyond the usual. Some researchers believe that the Sabu disc could have been a copy of a device left by guests from the sky, a highly developed civilization that visited Earth in ancient times. The structure and shape of the artifact resemble modern aerodynamic devices, or even elements of complex mechanisms. The Egyptians might have considered this object sacred and tried to reproduce something they saw but did not understand. Some think the Sabu disc could unlock how ancient civilizations interacted with extraterrestrial intelligence. For now, these are just speculations, but the mystical aura surrounding this artifact continues to excite minds and invites us to delve into the mysteries of the past. Ufologist Steve Bassett claims that the Catholic Church is hiding evidence of extraterrestrial life in its archives, and urges the Pope to reveal this information. In his opinion, the Church has known about contacts with extraterrestrial civilizations for a long time, but is deliberately hiding it. Bassett presents several pieces of evidence. First, he noticed strange images in medieval paintings, which, in his opinion, indicate the influence of UFOs. Hares fighting knights or trumpeters using their bodies in unusual ways, in his opinion, hint at alien intervention. In 2011, Vatican astronomer Guy Consolmagno jokingly said that the Church is ready to baptize aliens if any are found. Bassett took this as a hint at the existence of a secret Vatican program preparing for contact with extraterrestrial beings. The ufologist's third piece of evidence is a statement by former United States intelligence officer David Grush that in 1933, Italy discovered an unidentified flying object, and Pope Pius XII handed it over to the United States. Bassett urges the public to demand that the Vatican show these archives to the world. A black ring over Disneyland. Disneyland is the last place where you would expect to see something unexplainable. Everything around is made to seem controlled, predictable, and fun. But one day, a perfect black ring hovered right above the park, smooth, dense, as if it was cut out in the air. In the video, you can see hundreds of people looking up. Some think it's smoke, others think it's special effects. It just hangs in the sky, as if someone opened a thin black portal into the void. The perfect circle is the first strange thing. Smoke never behaves like that. Any cloud rising from pyrotechnics breaks apart, stretches, and gets torn by the wind within seconds. But here, the geometry is perfect, as if the shape is being held from within. The second odd thing is the silence. If it were from a volley or burst of fire, the sound would have echoed throughout the area, but the cameras record absolute silence. People are shouting, talking, but the object itself doesn't make a single sound. The third point is duration. The ring lingers in the air too long for smoke. It doesn't change thickness, tremble, or move, and only after several minutes does it slowly dissolve, as if someone turned off the source. Rumors about this anomaly have existed for a long time. Similar black rings have been seen over the fields of England, over the lakes of Canada, and over Indian cities. No one has ever explained their nature. The most popular theory is that it's an object, a plasma discharge, or a residual trace of some kind of technology, but no one can say what kind. Such rings often appear where there are a lot of people, places with large crowds, concerts, festivals, parks. It's as if whoever creates them wants the phenomenon to be seen, or wants to study people's reactions. The official comment from Disneyland was brief. It was a pyrotechnic effect. But in the videos, there is no fire, no sparks, no flashes, just trillions of alien sensors. Richard Bandrich speaks quietly, like someone who knows his words are already being recorded. A former engineer at National Aeronautics and Space Administration in Lockheed Martin, he spent decades designing propulsion systems, and now claims that Earth is dotted with invisible devices of extraterrestrial origin. He says they've been here a long time and we're starting to find them. According to him, it's not about wreckage from ships, but about a network of tiny sensors, trillions of microscopic structures scattered across the planet. Some of them, he claims, are able to change shape according to their environment. His team allegedly observed one such fragment under a microscope, a piece of metal that pulsed as if it understood it was being watched. Bandrich claims that he saw these objects dissolve into dust as soon as someone tried to study them. But the analysis revealed something that shouldn't be there. The isotopic composition doesn't match anything known on Earth. After the publication, his access to the materials was revoked. The laboratory was transferred to a private entity, and the engineer himself was suspended. Now he speaks openly. These are fairy tales, technologies that are too ancient, too advanced. According to his version, the network works like a sensory observation system, not for attack, but for detecting life, an invisible web of antennas enveloping the planet. You can be skeptical about the engineer's words, but with every discovery that suggests artificial interference in the natural order of things, the line between the incredible and the quite possible becomes thinner. Sometimes it feels like we are being studied with the same interest that we observe other worlds. There are strange notes in the archives of the 19th and 20th centuries Skeletons, up to 3 meters tall, were found in the burial mounds of North America. In their reports, archaeologists spoke of jaws and skulls that were too large for a human, but almost all such finds disappeared. Some blamed the churches, others blamed government institutions that covered up inconvenient evidence. Myths of different peoples repeat the same thing. The Sumerians wrote about the Anunnaki, as tall as towers. The Bible mentioned the Nephilim, sons of God, and earthly women. Native American tribes told stories about battles with giants who came from the sky and fed on human flesh. Scientists explain these legends as fantasies and mistakes. Why does this motif appear among unrelated peoples? And why is it always linked to the sky and gods? If giants really existed, then they could have been a different branch of humanity, or hybrids of humans and aliens. In that case, the history of our planet is not only the evolution of Homo sapiens, but also coexistence with those who were much bigger and stronger. The message of the aliens. Easter Island, lost in the southern part of the Pacific Ocean, became famous for its giant stone moai statues and the mysterious tablets with rongorongo inscriptions. These ancient tablets, covered with strange hieroglyphs, still remain one of the greatest archaeological mysteries. Scientists believe that rongorongo is the script of the Rapa Nui civilization, which flourished on the island until the 18th century. The history of their discovery begins in 1864, when the French missionary Eugène Hérault first noticed wooden tablets inscribed with unusual symbols. The tablets were made from Toramiro wood, which grows on the island and could be found in almost every home. However, soon most of these artifacts disappeared due to internal wars and destruction. About 25 tablets have survived, and their study revealed a unique writing style that resembles an inverted boustrophodon. Sign records had previously only been found among the Incas. The tablets depict figures of animals, plants, and anthropomorphic beings. Scientists suggest that these symbols might have been used to record rituals and myths. There is particular interest in the similarities between rongorongo and other ancient scripts. Some of the signs resemble the hieroglyphs of ancient Egypt, India, as well as the symbols of the Arab civilization that flourished in the Indus Valley. Parallels have even been drawn with the scripts of the Kuna Indians from Central America and Sumatra. This gives rise to theories about possible connections between ancient cultures across the ocean. Attempts to decipher rongorongo continue to this day, but so far, these writings have not been fully understood. One theory is that they describe rituals involving sacrifices to the gods. Another hypothesis, more fantastical, suggests an extraterrestrial origin for these symbols, hinting at contact with alien civilizations. Otherwise, how could people living on different continents in those distant times have had similar writing systems, while we today, despite having countless ways to connect through phones, satellites, and the internet, still speak different languages? The mystery of rongorongo remains unsolved, but its study continues to inspire scientists and enthusiasts around the world. The friendship between the inhabitants of ancient Egypt and aliens, as well as the topic of the connection between ancient Egypt and UFOs, is a subject of interest for many researchers and enthusiasts of paranormal phenomena. Many facts remain speculative, but there are also details that defy logical explanation. In some temples and pyramids, you can find drawings that resemble modern depictions of UFOs. The most well-known example is the image on the walls of the Ramses II Temple in Abu Simbel. On one of the walls, researchers discovered an image of a flying saucer with a rounded shape and strange aerodynamic features. Among other confirmations, there are numerous papyrus records dedicated to UFOs. One of them translates as, "And a fiery circle appeared in the sky. It had no head, but a terrible stench came from its mouth. Its body was huge, and it was voiceless." It's a bit scary, isn't it? Are there comparable records from a chronicler who lived 3,500 years ago? He claimed that the sky was covered with fiery discs, but the pharaoh did not get scared and did not allow the warriors to flee, after which the flying objects disappeared in an instant. Concepts such as winged shields and fiery discs are repeatedly found in ancient Egyptian written religious sources. Iron was hardly mined in ancient Egypt and was a rare metal, but the writings often mention iron thrones, scepters, and clothing intended for the pharaoh. The sun god was dressed in metal attire and sat on a throne of iron and fire, which also sounds quite strange. Special attention should be given to the Abydos hieroglyph, discovered in the Memorial Temple Hall of Pharaoh Seti I. Here, ufologists noticed a helicopter, a submarine, a glider, and an airship. For years, the photos and findings were thought to be fake, but their authenticity was soon confirmed, leading to suggestions that ancient Egyptians could see into the future. Other scientists believe that aliens travel through time and simply told them about the events of the 20th century. Skeptics categorically reject such ideas, believing that the images are the result of two hieroglyphic inscriptions overlapping after the plaster was damaged. Between them, there is another, no less amazing drawing, where a flying disc drops an aerial bomb. But critics also have their own logical explanation for this. Signals. Sometimes the future hides not in new telescopes, but in old boxes of archives on old photographic plates. In the United States, they recently rephotographed sky photographic plates from the 1950s, old observatory series taken long before the digital era. And on these images, they noticed strange flashes, small bright dots that appear only in one frame and disappear in the next. Astronomers call such objects transients. Usually it's a defect or a rare cosmic ray flash. But here, a chain of events began that can no longer be called a coincidence. Scientists compared the dates when these dots appeared with the calendar of nuclear tests, and it turned out that the probability of such a flash increased by almost 45% within a day after an explosion. That is, the sky was literally reacting, not to the light of the explosion, which could have been reflected a day later, but by the appearance of unknown objects that were recorded on photographic plates. Like fast single-frame impulses, it gets even stranger. The researchers checked what was happening with the reports during those days and found that the more reports there were in the press, the more transients appeared. In the photos, it's as if two independent systems, human eyes and old cameras, were capturing the same phenomenon, but from different perspectives, as if something was reacting to the nuclear tests. The transients were not atmospheric flashes. Their spectra didn't match plasma or light from heated air, and they weren't defects in the film. Chemistry or emulsions can't explain coincidences between observatories, and they weren't satellites. In the 1950s, there simply weren't enough of them, and the orbits of the first spacecraft are known down to the second. As a result, researchers ended up with strange statistics. Every time humans detonated something on Earth, the sky responded. No one knows exactly what appeared over the test site on those days. But now, when we see an object flying near Earth that reacts to solar flares, changes its trajectory, and shows strange signals, this archival footage no longer looks like a museum exhibit. DNA that doesn't match. We're used to thinking that genetics have been studied inside and out, but in reality there are still mysteries in our DNA that no one can answer. Scientists call them unexplained insertions, fragments that don't match the evolutionary line. They don't resemble primate DNA, known viral traces, or random mutations. It's as if these pieces of code came from somewhere outside. There is a hypothesis that some of these sequences could have entered us through ancient contacts, with viruses, or even with extraterrestrial organisms. It sounds fantastic, but lately, the idea of panspermia is openly discussed in scientific journals. Life could have been brought to Earth by meteorites or comets. And if that's the case, then it's possible that part of our genetic code is truly foreign. Some researchers go even further. They claim that there are structures in the human genome that are too orderly to be a coincidence, as if someone left a mark, a genetic watermark. Naturally, official science does not support such claims, but the very idea that there could be an alien trace encoded in us turns our understanding of humanity upside down. And then we have to ask the question, who are we really? The result of random evolution, or carriers of a message left by someone who lived long before us? The two-headed alien. In Tibet, a strange mummy with two heads was discovered, which was immediately dubbed the two-headed alien. This artifact caused shock among scientists and mysticism enthusiasts. The mummy looks as if its origin goes beyond earthly, which gives rise to many theories, from mutations to extraterrestrial civilizations. Some investigators believe that this could be a ritual artifact or a cult image created by ancient people to worship unknown forces. Interestingly, the structure of the mummy looks unusual, even for mutations known to biology. The proportions of its body and the shape of its heads suggest that it could have been the embodiment of something mythical or otherworldly. Ancient Tibetan legends often mention celestial beings who visited the earth. Perhaps this artifact is an attempt to depict those whom the ancients considered gods. However, there is also a more down-to-earth version. The mummy could be the result of artificial mummification of two different bodies, joined together for ritual purposes. The first accurate depiction of the moon. The early 17th century became an era of great discoveries in astronomy thanks to the invention of the telescope. The moon, which had previously been considered a smooth celestial body, appeared to scientists in a completely new light. In 1609, Galileo Galilei used a telescope for the first time to study the moon, discovering numerous craters, mountains, and valleys on its surface. His observations became a true revolution in the perception of celestial bodies. Galilei captured his discoveries in a series of detailed drawings that depicted the real topography of the moon for the first time. These images were included in his work Starry Messenger, published in 1610. Thanks to these sketches, it became clear that the surface of the moon is much more complex than ancient philosophers had assumed, and consists of irregularities resembling mountains on Earth. Interestingly, Galilei was not the first to point a telescope at the moon. Thomas Harriot, an English astronomer, began his observations of the moon back in 1609, but his drawings were less detailed and not as widely known. It was Galilei who had a key influence on the development of astronomy. The discovery of the moon as an uneven and dynamic object inspired many generations of researchers. Some ufologists believe that Galilei's drawings might have been the first images of anomalies on the surface of the moon. This interest continues today, giving rise to numerous theories about the possible extraterrestrial origin of some lunar features. Tombs are not for people. Archaeologists are used to interpreting everything within familiar frameworks. If there's a stone box, it means it's a sarcophagus. But in Egypt and Peru, there are burials that don't fit the human scale. In Saqqara, there are granite boxes weighing 60 to 70 tons each. They are crafted with jeweler's precision, but inside they are so huge that a single human body would look tiny in them, and it would be uncomfortable for several people. Why are they so large? On the other side of the world, in the Andes, tiny stone sarcophagi have been discovered. Their proportions are so small that an adult body simply wouldn't fit inside. The official version is that these are children's burials or symbolic rituals, but then why were they crafted with the same skill as royal tombs? Another mystery is the emptiness. Many of these sarcophagi contain no traces of burial, no bones, no funerary items, as if they were never used as tombs. And then the theory arises that these are not tombs but capsules, containers in which those who were not human were once stored or transported. Too large, too small, different. Maybe this is where the answer lies as to why the myths of almost all peoples speak of gods who came from the sky. An image of a car on an ancient temple. The Sigara Madu Temple, also known as Pura Dalem Jagaraga, is located in the north of Bali, 11 kilometers east of the city of Singaraja. The temple is located in the village of Jagaraga, which is known for a tragic event in 1849, when during the Dutch colonization, a mass ritual suicide of local residents took place here. Originally, the temple was built in the 12th century during the reign of King Raj Sri Aji Jagaraga, but it was later destroyed during the Dutch invasion. The restoration of the temple began in 1865, and its current appearance has mostly been preserved since then. The temple complex includes two temples, Pura Dalam, dedicated to Shiva, and Pura Prajapad, dedicated to Durga, which reflects their mythological roles as spouses in Hinduism. The walls of the temple are decorated with carvings depicting leaves, flowers, nagas, serpent-like creatures, and human figures. Pura Dalem Sigara Madu is associated with rituals of death and destruction, as it is dedicated to Shiva. In the central courtyard, there are carved Padaraksa gates decorated with the head of the mythical creature Homa, as well as pavilions for preparing offerings and conducting rituals. This temple is unique in that its walls feature scenes from the Western world, such as a plane falling into the sea, a ship attacked by a sea monster, and an old car. These images appeared because Singaraja was the main seaport of Bali in the 19th and 20th centuries, through which contact with European civilization took place. Examples from Japan. The Japanese government denied the existence of UFOs for a long time, citing a lack of reliable evidence and concerns about possible public panic. In addition, the government sought to maintain control over information to prevent any data leaks. However, Japanese pilots have repeatedly reported unidentified flying object sightings. One of the well-known incidents occurred in 1986 when the crew of a Japanese cargo plane over Alaska observed 3 unidentified objects that accompanied them for 50 minutes. This incident received a lot of attention and sparked interest among both ufologists and the public. In 2020, the Japanese government's attitude toward UFOs changed significantly. Defense Minister Taro Kono stated that the government would start taking unidentified flying object reports more seriously and would develop guidelines for pilots and the military in case of encounters with unidentified objects. This decision was made amid a growing number of sightings and public pressure. The defense minister initiated the development of standard procedures for collecting and analyzing data on such incidents, and also strengthened cooperation with international partners. The analysis of unidentified flying object data conducted by Japanese military forces showed that some sightings truly cannot be explained by ordinary phenomena or known aircraft. However, so far, no convincing evidence of the presence of extraterrestrial technologies has been found. On October 24, the Meerkat radio telescope in South Africa caught the first signal, something that had previously been unsuccessfully searched for, at frequencies of 1,665 and 1,667 megahertz, where there had been a gap before. A weak absorption occurs when a radio wave passes through a cloud of cold gas. Usually this is detected in ordinary comets, but here everything was stranger. The signal appeared briefly and vanished just as fast, like someone flicking a flashlight on and off for a second. Scientists attributed this to the radio waves effect on the shell's material. But there's a nuance. The object is older than the sun, so its surface should have almost burned out over billions of years, and its gas emissions should be extremely weak. However, instead of that, 3i Atlas showed activity precisely at the moment it passed a certain point in its trajectory, as if reacting to something external. This faint, fragmented signal doesn't seem like a transmission or code. Still, nothing like this has ever happened before in the history of observing interstellar objects. If a comet remains silent its whole life and suddenly responds just once, especially at the moment when a shock wave from a solar flare passes nearby, you can't help but think that we're dealing with something capable of changing its state, not just evaporating under the rays of a star. Scientists cautiously speak about unusual gas activity, but more and more people are noticing that 3i Atlas behaves as if it's not just flying, it's responding to the petrified waves. The Curiosity rover has been roaming the Gale crater for 12 years now, a huge area with a diameter of more than 150 kilometers. Its cameras have long gotten used to the dust, rocks, and endless horizon. But recently, strange structures have appeared in the images. Rows of small ridges stretching in one direction, like frozen waves. Scientists long debated if these were due to wind, precipitation, or tectonics, but comparing data with Earth's sedimentary models removed all doubts. These ribbed patterns were left by water, real waves that lapped on the surface of a standing lake. An ocean isn't needed for their formation. A depth of 1 or 2 meters and a moderate wind are enough. That's exactly what the atmosphere of Mars could have been like in that era. Water rippled, forming rows on the sandy bottom, then dried up, but the imprint remained for billions of years. This discovery may seem minor, just a few square meters of terrain, but it changes a lot. Previously, people thought ancient Martian bodies of water could have been hidden beneath ice, similar to Antarctica. Now we are sure that at least in one place, Mars had an open water surface where waves reflected the sunlight. Curiosity continues to climb to the top of Mount Sharp, and each new layer of sediment reveals another page of this planetary chronicle, the layer with waves. This is possibly the last page of the time when Mars was still alive. Aliens inside the Earth. When we talk about extraterrestrial life, we look to the sky. We wait for signals from Mars, Venus, Jupiter's moons, or distant galaxies. But there is a much more disturbing theory. We should not look up but down, right beneath our feet, at depths of hundreds of kilometers. Beneath the Earth's crust, there are zones that humans have never seen. There are no direct observations there, only indirect data from seismology and magnetic anomalies. Scientists detect strange bursts of heat that cannot be explained by magma movement. In some places, mysterious sources of radiation are recorded, which shouldn't be there. And then there are the myths. Ancient legends spoke of underground riches and of creatures that lived in the depths of the earth and occasionally came to the surface. In the 20th century, this idea was revived by the Hollow Earth hypothesis, secret expeditions of the Third Reich to Antarctica, and stories about entrances to underground worlds at the North and South Poles. Science considers this a wild fantasy. But then why do many geophysical anomalies still remain unexplained? Modern ufologists claim that some UFOs don't come from outer space at all. They emerge from the oceans, from underground, from cracks and faults. It's possible that their real base isn't in distant stars, but right here on our planet. If that's true, it's chilling to think we're looking for neighbors in space, while our real neighbors have always lived beneath us. And maybe they're the ones who decide how much we're allowed to know about the universe. Indonesian Star Trek. In 1992, geologist Castillo made a discovery that still shocks people to this day. In the province of Kapanga, Indonesia, he explored the Devil's Cave in the mountains and discovered an unusual stone. Mysterious symbols were engraved on its surface, resembling a star map. The markings on the stone are strikingly similar to the images from the plaques sent by National Aeronautics and Space Administration into space with the Pioneer 10 and Pioneer 11 probes in the 1970s. The stone depicts a man and a woman holding hands, as well as the sun, stars, and lines resembling roots. Geologists claim that the stone was worked on hundreds of thousands of years ago, which casts doubt on its earthly origin, since people at that time supposedly could not have possessed such knowledge. Conspiracy theorists suggest that aliens received the message from the Pioneer probe, but made a miscalculation and missed the timing, ending up on Earth hundreds of thousands of years ago. Perhaps they got stuck here and left their mark in the form of this stone. Another theory says that the stone could have been created by a highly developed civilization that existed in Indonesia long before our era. The map depicts a star system with 1 star and 7 planets, an almost exact reproduction of the solar system. Modern scientists recognize 8 planets, but not long ago Neptune was considered an asteroid. Whoever the authors of the mysterious stone were, their knowledge of the stars remains a mystery, astonishing modern science. The Wolfsegg artifact. In 1985, a worker named Railbeck discovered a mysterious artifact 60 million years old, known as the Wolfsegg iron. He found it in a block of brown coal at a foundry in Austria. This metallic object embedded in the coal caused great astonishment among the worker and his colleagues. They handed the find over to the local museum. In 1886, Professor of Geology Adolf Gerlt suggested that the artifact had come from space. However, further research showed that the artifact does not contain nickel, chromium, or cobalt, which rules out a meteoritic origin. In 1973, an analysis conducted by Dr. Hubert Matliener showed that the artifact was made using the lost wax casting method, which suggests it was created artificially. The artifact is almost cubic in shape, measuring 67 by 47 millimeters and weighing 785 grams, made of solid steel. Its edges were sharp and straight, indicating its machine-made origin. Some experts believe it was a fragment of a much larger tool. This discovery gave rise to the theory of the existence of an ancient advanced civilization on Earth millions of years ago. And although many thought it had disappeared, the artifact is still kept in the Heimat Museum in Vöcklabruck, but it is no longer on public display. Dangers and mysterious deaths. People who talk about their encounters with UFOs face several dangers. One of the main threats is that witnesses are often ridiculed and not taken seriously, which can negatively affect their personal and professional lives. In addition, there are more serious risks, including psychological pressure, threats, and even physical danger, especially if their testimony concerns secret government programs or military facilities. There are several examples of mysterious deaths of unidentified flying object researchers. For example, James McDonald, a well-known scientist and unidentified flying object researcher, allegedly committed suicide in 1971 after a series of mysterious events and threats. Morris Jessup, the author of the book The Case for the Unidentified Flying Object, also died under suspicious circumstances in 1959, which raised suspicions of possible outside interference. There are programs to protect unidentified flying object witnesses and researchers, and some organizations provide legal support and security consultations. There are many theories about the connection between the deaths of unidentified flying object researchers and their work. Some suggest that governments or secret organizations eliminate people who possess dangerous knowledge or reveal confidential information. Others believe that these deaths may be the result of psychological pressure and stress associated with studying and disclosing such information. A computer that's 2,500 years old, the Aegean Sea, April 1900. Just 100 meters off the coast of the island, divers discovered the site of an ancient shipwreck at a depth of 45 meters. For 2 years, researchers and archaeologists studied the wreckage, among which they found part of a metal box encrusted with coral and created in the 2nd century before Christ. This device is the first mechanical computer ever discovered by mankind. The mechanism is 1,500 years older than any similar artifact and contains dozens of gears that control the device. It is believed that the analog computer could have been used to predict astronomical events. Ancient Greece, as it turns out, had knowledge of mechanics and could create such a device, which completely changes our perception of history. It is believed that the ship set sail from the shores of the island of Rhodes, since this place was considered a haven of advanced technology at that time. Poets of ancient Greece repeatedly mention in their works living statues, capable of freezing in place or starting to move as if life had been breathed into them. It is quite possible that this was not just a literary device, but the first prototypes of robots created by humans. The Greeks claimed that they received knowledge from gods who descended to them from the heavens. It is possible that in this way they explained encounters with aliens who decided to share their technologies with humanity. The greatest mystery of the world. Off the coast of the Japanese island of Yonaguni, underwater ruins of an ancient city have been discovered, estimated to be 10,000 years old. This complex, which resembles a pyramid, a castle, temples, an arch, and a stadium, is connected by roads. In 2007, marine biologist Masaki Kimura described the main structure as a monolithic stepped pyramid 25 meters high. He suggested that the structures were built by the Jomon people, who lived on these islands 14,000 years ago. However, Professor Robert Schoch from Boston University expressed the opinion that the Yonaguni Monument is a natural geological formation. It has been 37 years since the first discovery of the Japanese Atlantis in 1986, but its origin is still shrouded in mystery. Kimura proposed a theory that it was part of the continent of Mu, lost due to a catastrophe. He also found stone images, including an underwater sphinx. Seismologist Toru Uchi from Kobe University supported Kimura's hypothesis, rejecting suggestions that the structures were of natural origin. However, Professor Schoch remains of his opinion, stating that the structure is not man-made and its features are the result of natural processes. So the depths of the sea near Yonaguni continue to hold the mystery of these amazing structures, remaining the subject of discussion and research among scientists. The second sun is a theory that our sun has a dark twin. Scientists have named it Nemesis after the goddess of retribution. This hypothetical star has never shown itself to us directly, but astronomers have noticed an alarming pattern. Mass extinctions on Earth occur with frightening regularity about every 26 million years. And if you trace the dates, it turns out that it's as if an invisible force, once every certain cycle, sends a deadly rain of comets and asteroids toward Earth. According to one theory, it was Nemesis that was responsible for the extinction of the dinosaurs. Its orbit takes it far beyond the boundaries of the solar system and then brings it back, destabilizing billions of icy bodies in the Oort cloud. Most of them fly off into the void, but some head toward us. And every time this cycle repeats, Earth experiences a planet-wide catastrophe. Officially, this is just a hypothesis. But if Nemesis exists, it means we never had just one sun, and all of humanity has lived in a binary star system without even knowing it. And then the question becomes much harsher. If we have a second sun, could it actually be the true master of our fate? Bodies of extraterrestrial beings? Ideas about the appearance of aliens are diverse. Some believe they look like humans, but with differences. Different skin color or genetic elements resembling reptiles or plants. Such images are often found in literature and movies. For example, in films about the Guardians of the Galaxy, aliens are depicted as furry or tree-like humanoids. Rocket Raccoon and Groot, covered in bark, became the embodiment of this idea. Other researchers and writers believe that it's pointless to form ideas about alien life based on Earth's evolution. The Polish writer Stanisław Lem, in his novel Solaris, created a different example. His alien intelligence is represented as an ocean capable of interacting with humans through their memories, giving them a chance to correct the past. This became a philosophical response to anthropocentrism. There are also more sinister versions of aliens. Some believe that alien life forms could be parasites using the human body as a habitat. A similar image was portrayed in the movie Venom, where an extraterrestrial symbiote used a human as its host. Not long ago, Mexican ufologist Keir Muasan presented remains that, according to him, belong to ancient aliens. These humanoid-like creatures have 3-fingered limbs, no teeth, and unusual physical features. X-ray analysis revealed rare metals in their bodies, such as cadmium and osmium, which are used today in satellite systems. An egg-shaped formation was found in one of the mummies, which further intrigued mystery enthusiasts. However, scientists are skeptical about these claims. Previously, in 2014, they turned out to be the remains of ancient children, not aliens. To confirm or refute the truth of the new claims, serious research will be needed. Until then, the discovery remains a subject of debate between ufologists and the scientific community. The Gobi astronaut. In 1834, in the Gobi Desert in Mongolia, the famous English explorer and cartographer Charles Edwin discovered a mysterious cave in the rock. Inside the cave was a skeleton of unusually large size, almost 5 meters long, with a proportionally enlarged skull and curved ribs. Next to the skeleton were metal objects, heavily distorted by corrosion. But one object caught the scientists' attention: a stone slab with a map of the starry sky and markings that did not correspond to any known star systems. According to Edwin, the slab is not just an artifact, but a tool for navigation or part of an ancient astronomical device. Interestingly, studies have shown that the material of the slab contains rare earth elements that are not typical for the region where the cave was found. This has led to speculation about the possible extraterrestrial origin of both the slab itself and the creature whose remains were found nearby. Further study of the stone slab revealed that the cartographic markings on it might have been used for navigation in outer space, suggesting that the creature could have been a pilot or explorer from a distant star system. Scientists suggested that the creature's death might have occurred as a result of its ship crashing, with parts of the vessel possibly scattered across the desert and buried under layers of sand. For centuries, this discovery remained little known due to political and scientific disputes about the origin and significance of the artifacts found. However, it continues to spark debates among scientists and adventurers who seek to uncover the mysteries of ancient civilizations. The codex that saw the future. In the Dresden Museum, there is a Mayan scroll from the 12th century that was long considered just a collection of incomprehensible symbols, until scientists realized that it was an extremely precise ancient algorithm for predicting solar eclipses. The Maya used a cycle of 4-5 lunar months and marked 38 new moons in which the sun could disappear. But the genius was in something else. They regularly reset the calendar at 223 and 358 months, preventing the error from accumulating. That's how the table remained accurate for centuries. Modern astrophysicists tested the model, compared the codex with 145 real eclipses that the Maya witnessed, and everything matched. Moreover, this method can still be used today by simply continuing their calculations. For the Maya, an eclipse was a sign from the gods, but the calculations themselves are pure mathematics, built without telescopes or instruments, only through observation and memory. And now it becomes obvious that the Dresden Codex is not just an ancient relic, but proof that humans are capable of understanding the rhythms of the universe, even without technology. We have brought ancient beings back to life. In northern Alaska, where the permafrost preserves the scent of ancient earth, a group of researchers from the University of Colorado drilled a tunnel through the thick ice to collect samples that are 40,000 years old. And what they found looks like a scene from a science fiction movie that suddenly became a documentary. In the samples, microorganisms woke up. They didn't come back to life instantly. It took months. At first, the scientists thought the colonies were simply inert, but after a while, they began to reproduce. Under the microscope, thread-like clumps appeared, gradually turning into a stable community. It was as if the microbes were waiting for a signal to start breathing again. Ancient forms of life began to release carbon dioxide, and some of them, methane. This process is invisible, but it is exactly what can change the climate. Gases that have accumulated under the ice for millions of years are beginning to escape. And along with them, things that have been dormant in the frozen layers for thousands of years are coming out as well. In 2022, a virus nearly 50,000 years old was already awakened in Siberia. Safety. But the very fact proved that ancient pathogens have not disappeared. They are simply waiting for warming. Now, similar cases are being recorded in Canada, Greenland, and Alaska. Scientists say that there is no threat yet, but when you look at the test tubes where ancient bacteria are moving again, it's hard not to feel anxious. We keep disrupting the planet's archive without really knowing what we're removing. And maybe one day the ice will respond not with cold, but with something alive that remembers the Earth from before humans appeared on it? Unidentified flying object expert Carnelli from the organization Unidentified Flying Object and Paranormal Research Ireland claims that in the central part of Ireland, between Athlone and Slane, there may be a portal through which unidentified flying object S enter the Earth. According to him, these sightings have become more frequent in recent months, and their purpose may be related to studying the military strength of humans. This statement came amid reports of unidentified objects spotted near military bases and nuclear facilities. According to Nelly, the United States authorities have not been able to determine the origin of these objects, which only strengthens the assumptions about their extraterrestrial origin. The expert paid special attention to Ireland, where numerous unidentified flying object sightings have been recorded. Nelly believes that places like the region between Atlan and Slane could be portals through which alien ships travel between space and Earth. He also noted that similar phenomena are happening all over the world at the same time, which indicates a global increase in activity. Write in the comments whether we should trust such experts and if you believe in the existence of extraterrestrial life. The Four-Eyed Figurine. This mysterious figurine, known as the Four-Eyed, was found on the territory of modern-day Serbia. The artifact is estimated to be over 7,000 years old, making it one of the oldest finds associated with the pre-literate culture of the Balkans. The figurine depicts a humanoid with 4 eyes, or possibly with elements resembling a mask. There is a hypothesis that these 4 eyes are actually part of a mask or a headdress, and the figurine itself might not have depicted a real being, but rather a mythical or divine creature that was revered in that society. There is even a bold suggestion that it might be something resembling a spacesuit, hinting at contact with something extraterrestrial, although this, of course, remains in the realm of fantasy. Little is known about the purpose of the figurine. It might have been used in rituals or served as a symbol of a protector or guardian. This artifact raises more questions than answers and continues to spark debates among archaeologists and mystery enthusiasts. The Four-Eyed is one of those rare artifacts that not only reveal fragments of the past to us, but also ignite our imagination. The Dragon Houses and Mount Ochi. The Dragon Houses on the island of Evia in Greece are mysterious megalithic structures that impress with their massive size and precision. These ancient structures, built from huge stone blocks without the use of mortar, date back to around the 8th century before Christ. Legends associate the dragon houses with the gods, particularly Zeus, and describe them as places of sacred rituals and as the dwelling of ancient dragons guarding these lands. Mount Ochi, where some of the dragon houses are located, is considered a place of contact with the gods because of its remoteness and majestic location. In ancient Greek mythology, mountains were often associated with the abodes of the gods and places of their manifestations. This mountain, rising above the surrounding landscapes, could be perceived as a sacred place where divine encounters and rituals took place. Archaeologists face many difficulties when studying these megalithic structures. One of the main mysteries is how the ancient builders were able to transport and place such huge stone blocks on the tops of mountains. The logistical and technical aspects of their construction remain unclear, especially considering the lack of modern tools and techniques. The lack of precise information about when and why these structures were built makes them harder to study and interpret. According to legends, Zeus used these places for his meetings with people and other gods. The dragons mentioned in the legends could have been symbols of his power in the protection of sacred places. There is a theory that the dragon houses could have been places of contact with extraterrestrials. Supporters of this hypothesis claim that the unusual architecture and precise geometry of these structures indicate possible influence from extraterrestrial civilizations. They believe that the ancient Greeks might have interpreted encounters with extraterrestrials as contacts with gods, which was reflected in their myths and legends. An alien ecosystem on the remote Puna de Atacama plateau in the Atacama Desert, located at an altitude of over 3,650 meters on the border of Argentina and Chile. Archaeologists have found a unique ecosystem with crystal-clear lagoons surrounded by salt flats. Rain is rare in this region, and the sun creates extreme conditions. In April last year, geologist Brian Hynek and microbiologist Maria Farias discovered these lagoons while studying satellite images and went there. Despite the difficulty of the journey, the researchers discovered 12 lagoons with a total area of 10 hectares surrounded by barren mountains. Underwater, there were green hills, communities, microbial communities forming massive fossils. These formations resemble stromatolites from the Archean era of Earth, when there was almost no oxygen in the atmosphere. Hynek believes that this lagoon may be one of the best examples of early signs of life on Earth. In the Atacama lagoons, the formations consist mainly of gypsum, a mineral often found in fossil stromatolites. Hynek noted that the conditions in the lagoon resemble those of ancient Earth. Lithium will be extracted in this area, so the unique ecosystem will most likely be destroyed. The mystery of Atacama? Atacama, often called the Russian Stonehenge, is one of the most mysterious archaeological sites in Russia. Located in the steppes of the southern Urals, this megalithic complex impresses with its size and precise layout, making it similar to the famous Stonehenge in Great Britain, both in terms of astronomical functions and geographical latitude. Atacama is a circular fortress with two concentric rings of walls and passages connecting the dwellings. Taking into account the ancient people's astronomical knowledge, research has shown that the buildings in Atacama were constructed in such a way as to observe 18 astronomical events, including solstices and equinoxes. This testifies to the high level of astronomical knowledge of the peoples who inhabited this region during the Bronze Age. Atacama not only attracts archaeologists, but is also a subject of interest for researchers of anomalous phenomena. Unusual magnetic anomalies are recorded in the area of the complex, which sometimes affect the operation of electronic devices. These anomalies, as well as a number of other unexplained phenomena, give rise to various theories, including assumptions that Atacama might have been used or even created by extraterrestrial civilizations. In addition, the unique architecture and the complex water supply system testify to the high level of social organization and engineering skill of its builders. These qualities make Atacama one of the key Bronze Age monuments in Eurasia. The supernatural destruction of Mohenjo-daro. In 1922, an officer of the Archaeological Service of India, together with a Buddhist monk, went to an area that turned out to be a religious monument. Instead of mounds of mud and stones in the Sindh area, which is now part of modern Pakistan, An entire Bronze Age city was discovered, with a grid of streets, boats, drainage systems, and flush toilets. The city was part of the Harappan civilization, which reached its peak 5,000 years ago and ceased to exist around 1900 before Christ. The Mound of the Dead is the legacy of one of the oldest civilizations. The inhabitants of Mohenjo-Daro were in no way inferior to those of Egypt and ancient Mesopotamia. At one time, about 35,000 people lived in this region, but archaeologists have managed to find only 43 skeletons that have survived to this day. The disappearance of the city was mysterious, but in 1977, a British researcher discovered evidence indicating that the cause was a powerful explosion. Melted stones and calcined skeletons suggest that the inhabitants of Mohenjo-Daro died instantly. In 2014, a doctor of mineralogy conducted a series of analyses and tests, which makes it possible to claim connections between the Arab civilization and aliens. This is shown not only by the advanced development of the locals, but also by their exposure to temperatures of several thousand degrees. There are no volcanoes here, and there were no technologies capable of reaching such temperatures. Mars was sold at an auction at Sotheby's in London. A small rock weighing 24.5 kilograms was brought into the hall. But this is not just a rock, it's a fragment of Mars, listed in the catalog as Northwest Africa 16,788, the largest of all known Martian meteorites found on Earth. It was sold for $5.3 million, and as usual, the buyer's name was not disclosed. The story of this discovery began in 2023. In the Sahara Desert, in the territory of Niger, local prospectors noticed a brownish-red boulder among the sand, covered with a melted crust. This is how the surface forms when entering the atmosphere, the moment when a space rock burns and melts on the outside, but remains cold on the inside. This shade is Martian, and the chemistry of its surface completely matches the samples that were once brought to Earth by the Viking probes. When the meteorite was cut open, it contained olivine crystals, a porphyritic inclusion, and tiny gas bubbles that were identical to those recorded in the atmosphere of Mars. Its age is hundreds of millions of years. Once, this piece was ejected from the surface of the planet as a result of an asteroid impact and wandered through space until it fell to Earth. Now it belongs to a private collector. It might be displayed in a museum, or maybe hidden away in a safe. It's hard to believe, but that's a fact for someone. Now, a fragment of another planet lies on the shelf. It's direct evidence that Mars was already sending us its messages long before we learned to send ours to it. Each such meteorite is not just a stone, it's a courier that traveled millions of kilometers to remind us that the connection between Earth and Mars began not with rockets, but with the impacts of celestial bodies. Incredible discoveries under the waters of the Nile. Archaeologists made an amazing discovery beneath the waters of the Nile in the Aswan area. A collection of ancient Egyptian artifacts and rock drawings related to the era when the city experienced a powerful flood. The relics found date back to the reigns of pharaohs such as Amenhotep III, Thutmose IV, and Psammetichus II. About 4,500 years ago, Aswan was an important trade and military center. Gold, wood, and spices were exchanged here, and materials from local granite quarries were delivered for the construction of temples, obelisks, and pyramids. However, after the construction of the Aswan Dam, most of the city ended up underwater. The Franco-Egyptian Archaeological Mission discovered unique rock reliefs depicting pharaohs, hieroglyphic inscriptions, and other sculptural elements. The work was carried out using modern technology such as underwater scanning, photogrammetry, and 3D modeling. These methods made it possible to document the discovered artifacts in detail and create their digital copies. Of particular interest is the image of Amenhotep III, who ruled Egypt for about 40 years and left a rich legacy. His burial was located in the Theban necropolis on the west bank of the Nile, opposite modern Luxor. Unfortunately, many monuments related to his era were damaged by floods, but the new discovery gives hope for the restoration of these historical relics of the island, which are missing. The history of cartography is full of mysteries. Old sea maps from the 17th and 18th centuries show islands that do not exist today. Hundreds of sailors swore they had seen land, landed on the shore, even described plants and animals. But after decades, these islands disappeared. Modern satellites confirm that in the marked places there is only empty ocean. The most famous example is the island of the sea, which was marked on maps for almost 200 years. In 2012, Australian researchers decided to double-check the spot and found nothing. Not a patch of land, not a trace of a reef, just a depth of 1.5 kilometers. But how then can we explain hundreds of captains' records? Was it a mass hallucination or a mistake by everyone at once? There are dozens of such cases. The Brabant, Frederick, and Emerald Islands, which existed for centuries and suddenly disappeared. Scientists attribute it all to measurement errors, but sailors left detailed reports with drawings and descriptions of the flora and fauna. Either all of global navigation was mistaken for centuries, or we are dealing with a phenomenon for which we simply have no explanation. There are theories that these were not islands, but objects that could rise from the water and then sink back into the depths, possibly volcanic formations, or perhaps something else. Some ufologists believe that these could have been bases or ships of giants that disguised themselves as land. The bas-reliefs of Nuku-Hiva. On the island of Nuku-Hiva, which is part of the Marquesas Islands archipelago in French Polynesia, archaeologists are amazed. Mysterious statues, bas-reliefs, and sculptures depict strange beings resembling gray aliens. Their bodies are human, but their heads look like reptiles, with huge round eyes and mouths set low on their faces. Who created these statues and for what purpose is unknown. The modern natives of the island know nothing about the origin of the sculptures and believe that they depict the ancient god Onu. Europeans found the island in the 16th century. It was home to notorious cannibal gatherers. The link between today's people and the creators of the mysterious statues is now lost. Archaeologists suggest that these sculptures are at least 150,000 years old. Some believe that they depict priests in ritual masks, but such masks look too unusual to be just a part of earthly culture. Conspiracy theorists are convinced that a colony of aliens once lived in Kiva, according to science. In their opinion, the statues depict human-alien hybrids, and the sculptures themselves are evidence of ancient experiments. New video about Roswell. Almost 80 years have passed since strange debris was found on a ranch in New Mexico, but the Roswell story has come alive again. A 22-minute video suddenly appeared in the United States National Archives with no commentary, no annotations, and a simple title, The Roswell Incident. The footage shows a gray field, scattered metal fragments, a crater-like impact hole, all filmed on old film. Users compared the landscape to eyewitness descriptions from 1947, and the matches turned out to be eerily accurate. Someone even noticed a vague silhouette in the right corner that looked like a body. Experts were quick to cool the excitement. An archive is not proof, it's just a storage place. Most likely the video is related to documents from the Mogul program, when the United States launched balloons to track Soviet nuclear tests. The official story claims it was a weather balloon, whose wreckage was confused for a flying saucer. But for unidentified flying object enthusiasts, the appearance of this video is a big event. The National Archives is not an anonymous forum. Random fakes don't get uploaded there. Why the video only appeared there now is a question no one answers. And maybe that's the whole point of the Roswell story. Even if the mystery has long been explained, every new fragment brings back the feeling that somewhere under the dust of the past, there is still metal lying there that doesn't belong to Earth. If all this is true, then the history of Earth is much more complicated than we think, because unidentified flying object traces lead both to the sky and underground. And that's good news, which means we'll keep digging further. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, everyone.